was a plunging. This is a...
Okay. Now describe to us the difference between a cascade and a waterfall.
A cascade is one that flows downhill over ledges or short cliffs, like a series of steps. That's a cascade.
Whereas a waterfall just...
A waterfall plunges. That is a lot smaller road. Not anymore close. Oh, that's Grand Island. I wonder if that's... Very strange. But we are doing the PicturedRocks route, right? They're not going to drop us off at the Grand Island. Grand Island. No, because that's a ferry that you can put cars in. And that's not near here. It sure looks like they're lining up for this walk. Maybe the other one wasn't. It's like a church.
Now this schoolhouse-looking structure is East Channel Lighthouse. Very hard to get to in any other way except for a boat like this. It was put here in 1867, and now this formation is Miner's Castle. This stands about 90 feet above the superior level, and it's really interesting because you see all the little caves that have been worn into the base of it there. It's a really beautiful area to take kayaks around to. You stick the bow of your kayaks in and kind of explore what's inside there. It's just beautiful. And take a look at the Park Service has put out a couple of viewing platforms. One is on the left-hand side, right on the rock structure itself. And then there's a second viewing platform that's way up on the cliff, farther to the right. And from either of those two up there, the views up there are just absolutely fantastic. Now you can see down the PicturedRocks, you see the cliffs. You can take it a little bit over towards Miners Beach over here. You can see Grand Island, and of course, as you could probably imagine, the sunsets from up there are just absolutely phenomenal. Well, the setting up there was so remarkable that someone decided to get married up there. And so they planned it all. They had their having a wedding up there. I don't blame them. I mean, can you imagine a better setting for a wedding up there? Wow. Well, we were going by and the wedding was going on, and they had all the trimmings, the dress, the flowers and everything. It was really quite impressive. But as I looked up there when we were passing by, I couldn't help but to think that that's the first marriage that I knew that started off on the rocks. Now this is Bridal Veil Falls. There's not much water coming over right now. It was just a little bit earlier today, but it's just kind of dried up, which is typical right now. This thing kind of comes and goes. But take a look at the color in this cove right here. And how all the colors in the PicturedRocks work is kind of like this. It's an unusual situation because the water table here is way above lake level. Typically, the water table runs right about at lake level, but along the PicturedRocks it's elevated way up high. And then where the water table meets the cliff, the water slowly oozes out of the water table and down the faces. Okay, now the radio's quieted down a bit. Okay, so what happens is that the water that oozes out of the water table down the wall, and it deposits whatever minerals are dissolved in that water. Where you see red, yellows, oranges, that kind of thing, that indicates the presence of iron. And where you see black, that means that there's the presence of manganese. And in other spots, like on this point out here, is where you see the white seeping out. That usually indicates use seepage. And there's even a few little spots along here. So you see that blue-green circle. That indicates that there's copper there. Now the other thing that happens on occasion along these rocks is that we get rock falls. And how that works is kind of like this. You see that big column of rock with a crack right behind it? Well, what happens is the water works its way into that crack, and then during the spring and fall, when you have the freeze-thaw cycle, that process slowly works that crack a little farther open every year. And so eventually, at some point in time, we don't know when, at some point in time, that big column of rock comes crashing down into Lake Superior. Great big one that's about like Neopod position. That one has an interesting story. A few years ago when I decided to come down, Now this little set of coves here is called the Caves of All Colors. And you can kind of see where it gets that name, can't you? Now, what happens here is kind of an interesting thing. There's a few little spots along the cliffs just like this. But you take a look straight above us, straight up on top, you see that there really isn't any big vegetation up there. And the reason is that those huge storms that come in, the giant waves just completely encompass all of these coves and they trap air in there. And then all that momentum of the water and the heavy weight of the water slamming in there compresses that air. And then when the water recedes, all that compressed air comes out with great gusto. And it lifts a lot of spray and water up high into the north wind, which then blows it over the cliff. And then in the course of the winter, all that ice builds up and builds up and builds up. It gets to be really thick up there, and it crushes all the vegetation over the winter. And then this arch right here that we're going by is called Lover's Leap. And it gets its name because can you kind of see where it looks like there's a heart in there that's tipped over on its left side a little bit? But contrary to its name, Lover's Leap, no matter how much you love someone, you really don't want to be leaping off of that one because right underneath there, it's only about 3 feet deep. However, I have seen people jumping off the very end of it out there. Isn't this just gorgeous? got out of there just in time, and the whole rock curtain just fell right in front of it. Yeah, it got them wet and made a really big wave and everything, but they also got an excellent video of that whole face coming down right in front of them, and they posted it online. So if you were to do a search on, say, something like rock falls, PicturedRocks, you'd be able to find that video. It was pretty impressive. If you take a look at our fuel composition, you'll see one of those little bright blue-green turquoise areas about 10 feet off of the water. Looks like they're about 3-4 feet long. That's a great example of where there's a lot of copper that's moving out of the wall right there. Well, you see the tree that's in the water is just right off to our side. Well, that means that rocks are not the only thing that fall off the cliff from time to time. rainbow cave. It gets its name because you see all the banding color in there, and just kind of looks like a rainbow in there. And interestingly, up in the top right-hand corner in the ceiling up there, if you look closely, you can see some of that copper green turquoise color appear there. And part of why it appears there is that there's a water seep that comes out there, and it flows fairly good all year round. So in the winter, it forms fantastic ice formations in there. And it's a favorite among the ice climbers because that ice forms nice and hard and strong. And so it's a perfect area for the ice climbers to ascend on. There's a few spots along the wall here where you get magnificent ice curtains in the winter. And so it's a really popular thing for the ice climbers to come out here and do their thing, and they have festivals out there for it, so it's pretty interesting. Now this section is known, this part is known as pink surface. And I get that name because it has all of the different colors. Sorry about the VHF radio is being a little noisy down there, so now it's quieted down. Oh, it's called painted desert because all of the different colors are here. The oranges, the black, a little bit of green on the vegetation, the white, it's all here, and there's a lot of texture in the wall. And so over the course of time, people have been able to pick out different shapes and objects in these walls. Like some people sometimes see a horse or a train, or even faces, not a stadium, even a famous faces. And a little while back, I was someone from the I see Dwight Johnson's face right up there. So right underneath that bird tree. Boy, I don't see it. I don't see what you're talking about. There's no mind though. There's Dwight Johnson just looking right down at you. Right by that bird tree there. Oh, I'm sorry. I just don't see what you're trying to point out to me. The only thing I can see is the rock. Because if you do a little bit of imagination and a super tool of creativity, you can use a profile of a stand it up there, it represents the Indian headdress that he'd be wearing. And then all the vegetation all freeze and give you that effect. It'd be like the feathers of the wind back up there. And everyone pick out a face in that? this is more because remember some of the three big giant waves that we were talking about before? They come crashing into here and they hit these little recesses in the pockets here, and they make a big thunderous sound when they crash into them. And so that's how it gets this hitting the drum. So we can take a look at Tropical Cove. Isn't this the most magical spot you've been in? This is, I think, my favorite spot ever.
Looking at the curve, it's just...
Isn't this so cool? this long beach that we're going by right now is called Chapel Beach. It's a favorite among the long-distance backpackers that are doing that long trip all the way from Grand Marais to Munising. This is a perfect place to take the pack off, take the load off your back, walk in this nice warm sand, stick your feet in the water, stick your feet in the lower Chapel Falls, see the river coming out right here. It's a little cascading little waterfall there. Just good to walk around on that. And I did that walk from Grand Marais to Munising a while back, and I camped right here for 2 days because I just thought it was the most beautiful spot to rest and just enjoy. Now take a look at this rock that's coming up here about our 1 o'clock position. This is called Chapel Rock. Some people call it Table Rock because it looks like it has 4 legs and a flat top up on it. But either way, it's a really unique situation going on the top of it. You see that big old white pine that's sitting on top there? Well, there isn't anywhere near enough soil there to sustain a tree of that magnitude. And so what it's had to do is that it has a root bridge that suspends all of its roots all the way over to mainland. It's bridged this big gorge there, and so those roots that span that gorge are the only length of moisture and nutrients that get over to mainland. When we get a little closer, you'll be able to see them. Now you can start to see that root bridge. See now how the roots have spanned that entire gorge? That's its only link to moisture and water and nutrients. Now this is such a unique scene right here. That is part of the Michigan Quarter Series. This very scene is on the back of the Michigan 2018 Quarter. They are in circulation, so keep an eye out for them. You can find them from time to time. Our way back to Munising, if there's this really perfect photo op that you missed on the way here, well, you get a second try at it here.